hello, Prime Media followers in Ethiopia and abroad. I'm here, your host, Ladette, coming back again with a wonderful special guest. Our special guest is joining us from Virginia. His name is Yohannes Kifle. He's a very known person in the DC, Virginia, Maryland area, a known activist. He represents the Eritrean community. I have had the chance to do few things with him, and I'm very impressed with all the work that he does for his community. He's very much loved in his community, and I'm very honored to meet you. And I would like to give him the chance to kind of tell us what he does and his background, whatever he wants to share with the audience in Ethiopia and here in the diaspora. Yohannes, welcome, and thank you very much for joining me and having this discussion today.
Thank you very much. The pleasure is mine. And I also thank you for having me today. My name is Yohannes Kifle. As you mentioned, I live in the United States. I live in Virginia and work in DC. I'm in the business industry. I manage a business. And of course, my background in education is business as well. But I'm very passionate about politics. So I follow politics, whether it's local or what have you. And as you may know, that I'm very active when it comes to Ethio-Eritrean politics, and very excited about what's going on. And there you go. That's my brief introduction about myself.
Okay. Yeah. So in the last several months, I've seen you very active, both in the Ethiopian and Eritrean community. I just want to start the question off with, where do you see the relationship of Ethiopia and Eritrea today? And what do you see moving forward?
That's a very good question. I guess it deserves a very good answer here. I think it's very important that we need to briefly examine what happened and how we got here in the first place. And what I mean by that is that we need to look at the history of those countries for the past 75 years. That's a long history, and I'm going to make it as short as possible. Eritreans and Ethiopians' problems started in 1945, to be precise, after World War II was over. The Allies in the United States of America, and after they defeated Germany or the Nazis, they pretty much controlled the world. And they have their own policies, how the world should be governed. Unfortunately, that was not a good decision for Eritrea, because the United Nations and the Allied force, especially the United States, wanted Eritrea to be linked with Ethiopia. Keep in mind that Eritrea was colonized by Italy, and also some other African countries like Libya and Somalia. After World War II was over, and those two countries that I mentioned, the Somalis and the Libyans, were granted their independence, but Eritrea wasn't. Despite the fact that 75% of Eritreans wanted to be independent, and they were not allowed. So this is an excuse that was given by the United States that even though the Eritreans deserve to be free, the political situation, the peace in the world will have to force us to link Eritrea with Ethiopia. This is, I'm paraphrasing what the Secretary of State at the time, John Foster Dulles, said. And Eritrea was federated with Ethiopia with United Nations help. And those countries were tied for quite some time, but it was not a pleasant experience for both. After the federation, Haile Selassie, the king, violated that federation agreement and annexed Eritrea by force and declared that Eritrea is part of Ethiopia going forward. And that also was a catalyst for Eritreans to uprise, and they started the armed struggle. And as they say, the rest is history. After 30 years of struggle, Eritrea became independent. So it was very important that we have to look at it pre and post-independence of Eritrea, how the relationship goes. After independence, well, post-independence, we all believe that Eritrea and Ethiopia have everything behind them now, and all of a sudden that peace is prevailed and they will live peacefully together. But unfortunately, the political party, EPRDF, led by TPLF, had a different agenda about Eritrea. I don't think they both Eritrean independence, regardless of their cooperation with the Eritrean Liberation Front when they fought for independence. I think they had their own agenda. They did not accept the fact that Eritrea will should be free or will last free at some point. They think they can go back and redo the whole story again. And after 7 years of peace between Ethiopia and Eritrea as a nation, war broke out, and that the war lasted for a couple of years. Again, Eritrea prevailed on that war. The two governments were forced to sit down by international community, of course, and resolve their situation peacefully and legally. And that's where the Algiers Agreement came. And the Algiers Agreement was supposed to be a final and binding. Unfortunately, the TPLF-led government of Ethiopia did not accept it. And there was a stalemate for 20 years between Ethiopia and Eritrea. The Eritreans were working hard to make sure that TPLF will not last long in Ethiopia as a leader of Ethiopia. They have worked with the other faction groups, what I should say, oppositions in this case, and they were managed to push the TPLF out of Ethiopia, out of Addis, I should say, I'm sorry, and TPLF was forced to go to Tigray. And the new government, led by Abiy, came to power last 2-3 years, and he's willing to work with Eritrea. He accepted the Algiers Agreement in its totality, and the relationship between those two governments started about 3 years ago. So far, so good, and I think they laid a strong foundation, and that was followed also by the people of both Ethiopia and Eritrea. So what we're seeing right now, what we are today is that we overcome that 75 years pain that's been caused by outsiders. And we are in a position to control our own destiny. And for the first time in 75 years, two governments are looking at each other eye to eye and working together. And I think they're bringing peace. That's what everybody's hoping, both Ethiopians and Eritreans. I think that will be achieved, but there's going to be a lot of struggle that waiting ahead of us, and as communities we work together and we will overcome that. That's what I believe.
Thank you so much for such a great storytelling. You did a great job telling us the background and up to now. You know, it's quite amazing, and I guess we should congratulate both Ethiopia and Eritrea for coming to where they are today. For our generation, especially, you know, there is nothing important than seeing countries forming peace. Especially Eritreans are, you know, our brothers and sisters. We have a lot of cultures. We share a lot of cultures. We share a lot of things in common. So it's wonderful to know that we're no longer looking at each other as an adversary, but yet now we're actually looking to collaborate and to grow and to support each other. I think that's a very win-win situation for both Ethiopians and Eritreans. So I think that's a huge milestone that was achieved by both. So like you said, with all good things, also there are going to be many challenges. We're still we have a fairly new transitional government, and Ethiopia has its own challenges as well. Like you said, we're going to have a lot of challenges in the future. So what are some of your suggestions to help, in collaboration and peace building, and, to encourage both Ethiopians and Eritreans in nurturing this new relationship that we have found that we so dearly want to continue to nurture and grow?
I think one of the key components of enhancing relationship between these two countries is education. I think we need to awareness, quite frankly, that we need to continue with a dialogue with our people, and information is power, they said. We need to inform our peoples, both sides of the spectrum. Now that we laid the foundation and let people know what the history is between Eritrea and Ethiopia, people seem to understand that and accept, especially on the Ethiopian side, that Eritrea is supposed to be an independent nation, and they have come to accept it. And one thing interesting that I have this conversation with friends and some of my colleagues on both sides. How many people, what percentage of the people of Ethiopia have really accepted that Eritrea should be an independent nation? It depends who you're asking, when you're asking, of course. 30 years ago, maybe 75% of Ethiopians never accepted Eritrea's independence. Today, 30 years later, of course, that number is reversed. Keep in mind, 30 years, and if you look at the Ethiopian population right now, 60% of the Ethiopian population is under 25 years of age, and that is significant. And that's what the 60% of Ethiopians do not have a relationship with Eritrea, so to speak, not emotional at least, not like their fathers, their grandfathers. So I think that was education, was the fact that they were detached for 30 years. People have come to accept that Eritrea is a neighbor country, not someone that belongs to us. So that's very critical. So I think we're going that direction. Yes, and are there other elements that were still hanging on the old story? Perhaps, but I think they will be marginalized with time, and either they will accept it and they will be marginalized, one or the other. So what I'm seeing right now, what I have witnessed the last 3 weeks in Washington, D.C., especially on those demonstrations that we have participated, both sides, is there was a mutual respect. And Ethiopians have come to understand that Eritrea should not be an enemy. Eritrea is a country, Eritrea is a friend. Eritrea, that we have something that that's tied us for the last 50, 70 years, the good and the bad experience. And I think that is huge as far as I'm concerned. And so this dialogue has to continue. This working together has to continue. Whether we like it or not, our future is intertwined. This is something that we all have come to agree, and most of us, at least in my circle, so to speak, and it is essential for us to work together. If anything goes wrong in Ethiopia, it will affect Eritrea and vice versa, especially the external forces that are coming or putting their noses in our business needs to be stopped. The only way we can stop it is if we work together. If we say that this is our business and you should not interfere in our internal affairs, and I think that message was sent clearly about 3 weeks ago. And I think the Biden administration was the first administration to get that message, as far as I'm concerned. And looks like he got the message. But this will be a challenge, like you said. There's going to be a challenge that's coming from not only the external force, the internal force also. So we have to work together to eliminate those obstacles that we have been faced with. And I think with the way things are going right now, if we keep the momentum right now, I think we will get there.
That's great. What do you think? How do you gauge, the people's response to the peace and the collaboration that Ethiopian and Eritreans are having? One of the collaboration, or one of the recent achievement that we've had is, when Ethiopian Defense Force was attacked by the TPLF leaders. There was support from the Eritrean government in helping reduce the damage. Although we are hearing a lot of complaints that Ethiopian and Eritrean soldiers have committed human rights abuses and so forth. What do you say about the collaboration, or even the actual action that both the Ethiopian government and the Eritrean government took in this situation?
That's a very interesting question. First of all, we need to go back and think about what happened 3 years ago when President Isaias and Prime Minister Abiy met. There was an agreement. First one was 5 points, and it was extended to 7 points when they went to Saudi Arabia and signed another agreement. I think they clearly put what those agreements were, and people seem to not understand it, and I don't know why. Yes, of course, there was no detail in every point that they have agreed and signed. But one of the things that they mentioned was security. Security in the sense that whatever is dangerous to Ethiopia, it is dangerous to Eritrea, or vice versa. So the Eritrean government and the Ethiopian government have already agreed to support each other in need. And unfortunately, what happened in November 3rd, I should say, was a very unfortunate circumstances that I don't think the Ethiopian government expected it. I don't think the world expected it. I don't think the people of Ethiopia expected it. But at the same time, that danger was also danger to Eritrea. Eritrea, the reason I say that is that the TPLF, the junta, I called it, and I'm sure everybody calls them junta now, they had the intention to overthrow Abiy first and turn around and go Eritrea to overthrow the Eritrean government. That's a very ambitious plan. Unfortunately, they did not have whatever it takes to accomplish that. It is very sad what happened that day. Subsequently, what happened to the juntas is not something that I'm sad about, of course. The Eritrean government helped the Ethiopian troops, were forced to flee towards Eritrea. As a government, as a people, as an administration that cares about one Ethiopia, the government made a decision to support those troops and reorganize them and do whatever it takes so they can accomplish their mission. That means getting rid of the junta. So the Ethiopians were obviously, we've heard it from the prime minister, we've heard it from the military generals, and we've heard it from Ethiopians that they were forever in debt for what Eritrea did for the government of Ethiopia and for the people of Ethiopia. Yes, there were histories, well, I should say there were accusations that was coming from the Tigray side, and that was supported by their friends, external friends, and their supporters in diaspora, and they were making up stories. By the way, this is not the first time the TPLF was making stories about Eritrea or Prime Minister Abiy or President Isaias. This is something that we've gotten used to as Eritreans, especially. So, but that media blitz was so fast and so organized, and I have to give them a credit for that. And they made it to reach all the way to the White House desk. And I can imagine how much money they spent, their friends, and even the Yohannes. So we probably have stashed monies hide somewhere uh, in an unknown bank, and someone who was managing their affair also. They managed to get it there. And Americans were always, especially the Democratic Party, was also a supporter of the Yohannes. This is historically, if we go back 30 years, uh, when Clinton was there for 8 years, he was supporting the Yohannes. When Obama was there, he was doing the same thing. So 16 years, the junta was supported by Democratic Party administration. And now Biden came and nothing has changed. So if you look back 4 years ago, a Republican administration, perhaps someone who's not as informed as the previous presidents, I'm talking about Trump, who doesn't care about Africa for whatever reason, he probably would not get involved if he knows anything about the political situation between those two countries. And that worked for us, for Eritrea and Ethiopians, quite frankly. Unfortunately, the Biden administration came in about 2-3 months and started reviving this dying regime. What was very disappointing is for both Eritreans and Ethiopians, they bought that false propaganda and they started buying it and they started influencing the decision on both Eritrea and the Ethiopian government. So now I'm looking at what happened 3 weeks ago and what is going on right now with this administration. I'm talking about Biden administration. They seem to hold back. I think that false propaganda that was spread by the supporter of Yohannes, they found it to be unbelievable. They probably said, wait a minute, we have to think about this. The story that's coming is might not be as true as we are led to believe in the first place. So they're changing the way they're dealing with the Ethiopian government. And of course, the Eritrean government also made it easy by saying that we will withdraw from the border that was left by Ethiopian troops. And if it was left and stay there empty, that there's a chance that the Yohannes probably will, or the juntas probably will take that, and it will create a dangerous situation for us. So we have to worry about our national security. That's the only reason when the Ethiopian government is ready to take over, we're willing to vacate. So that's where we are. So this force that's coming from outside right now is kind of calmed down. Is it going to be like that? And I'm not sure. They may find another way of attacking both governments, the Ethiopian and the Eritrean government. But right now, it seems like they're freezing where they are. And definitely the demonstration that was that they witnessed in front of State Department, United Nations office, and U.S. Capitol was something that they have never seen before, and that has a lot to do with their influencing their decision and to hold back. But I don't think it's over yet. But we have to be prepared for any eventuality as people of Ethiopia and Eritrea, and both governments, for that matter.
I agree. I think, like you said, I think they have stopped for a moment, but then the push continues. You see daily articles coming out, trying to revive the TPLF leaders. So I don't think we're quite clear from the dark, I should say, because I feel like it was not a balanced judgment, that statements that were coming out were not balanced. So I think the PR and the lobbying that they have done, like you said, I do have to give them credit for that. I know money does help a lot, so I think the finances is on their side. Um, so we'll see, but I agree that our unity is very important, and we need to continue to collaborate, both here in the diaspora and in Ethiopia, to defend our country and our relationship. I want to talk about our last topic, which is, as you mentioned, 30 years of war in Eritrea, trying to attain her freedom, her independence. Then we've had another conflict in 2000 in Ethiopia. Currently, the law enforcement operation has displaced many people. Many people have experienced traumatic events, loss of lives. We also continue to see some ethnic rivalry and terrorism in Ethiopia. So we have a community, we have a country that has experienced a lot of trauma. I come from a public health background, and it's very hard for me to ignore the amount of trauma that we have experienced. It's significant, and it affects the way we think. It affects our decision making. It affects the way we react. What do you think about the trauma that we have dealt with as a nation, as neighbors, as community, and how is it affecting us, and how can we work on that to sort of heal each other? Because at the end of the day, my outlook is, we might not agree on everything. We're human beings. We may not agree on everything, but we should agree on learning how to not overreact, or how to really hold the interest of peace and holding each other together and so forth. And in order to have that, in order to attain those things, we have to deal with the trauma that we have dealt with ourselves, because it takes to unwind all those things in order for you to be able to bring positive outlook. So how do you think, and what do you think we should do in order to deal with those past and current events too?
For the better part of that 75 years that I mentioned earlier, Ethiopia and Eritrea were involved in war. And that's the ugliest side of war, is that it will bring poverty, it will bring loss of lives and the loved ones, friends, husbands, children, sons and daughters, and so many destruction that happened in the past 75 years. I think Ethiopia and Eritrea had a brief peace for 7 years right after independence of Eritrea. And right, we went back again to war. War does not have to be by shooting or dropping bombs and what have you. The fact that you are in a state of war, at least psychologically, that will impact you, like you said it earlier. And when you have 300,000 troops facing each other, they have 600,000 families who are worried about them, not to mention the extended families, of course. And that is not a way to live. And Ethiopia and Eritrea lived that for 20 years. And what we have accomplished is putting us in a different state of mind. Not only the people who are on the border, now their family, their extended family. We all are happy that war is not something that we need to worry about. And unfortunately, what happened 3 months, 4 months ago was unexpected. And I think that's going to be resolved in time as an internal issue of Ethiopia. You hate to see that happening, of course. But as far as Eritrea and Ethiopia as a nation, I think a war is behind us because we have two leaders that really think alike, and these two leaders are are passing it on to the population, to the people of both nations, and all of a sudden everything is clicking. So I'm not worried about war in the future between those two countries, but you can't say never, obviously. Uh, but what worries me right now is what's taking place in Ethiopia, the internal conflict, uh, the ethnic-based conflict to the point that people are killed just about every day. Uh, how do you stop that? What is that we all can do to help stopping it? Uh, First thing first, that the junta has to be eradicated, that's for sure. I think we're very close to get there. And also there are juntas that are
Mhm.
working in some other areas and doing the same thing that the junta is doing. They want to destabilize Ethiopia because I want to call them extremists. And it's very unfortunate. Extremists are everywhere. Extreme ideology is everywhere. And people are just following it for unknown reasons, and some are using it for political reasons. So I'll call them the willful ignorant, knowing that it's not good for their country, but using it for their own advantage. That is exactly what's going on in Ethiopia right now. That's a very unfortunate part of it. I'm hoping also that will be resolved. And uh, Prime Minister Abiy is handling so many things: the economy issue, the war with the junta in the north side, and the internal conflict in the middle of Ethiopia. There's a packet issue here and there. Those are the recipe for disaster. They can destabilize the country. But I think that politically, he has a very strong support from Ethiopians, no matter how much they despise what he does, what he didn't do, they still are supporting him, the majority of it. And I know there is a frustration. I think he will overcome that. I think these two governments, as far as I'm concerned, they're working together to help out each other. Your peace is mine, your destabilization is going to be my problem. So that's the way they look at it. So I think they're working together. They resolve this issue. This, I would say, probably after the election, and I'm assuming that Prime Minister will be elected, Prime Minister Abiy. I think he will have his own mandate. I think he will have his own agenda, and he can get people lined up and parties lined up to overcome what's taking place right now in Ethiopia. I'm very optimistic about Ethiopia's future. Ethiopia will be one of the strongest nation in East Africa, if not in the whole entire Africa. Uh, they have dealt with so many problems. This is a battle-tested prime minister, so to speak. So I think he will overcome, and with the help of friends like Eritrea, Somalia, and the countries in the Horn of Africa, with the support that he's getting from others from outside, he'll be able to overcome and have this situation taken care of once and for all. And that's my 2 cents.
I will just ask you one question for 1 minute. I think it was about last week, Ambassador Mufti, Dina Mufti, made a comment where he had to come back and sort of say that he was misunderstood about a comment that he made about Eritreans. I got a chance to listen to it. I felt that from the context, that he was trying to say something, but then he did say something that was a bit unaccepted by Eritreans. How did your community react, and how did you feel about it? And whenever such comments are made, how should we react, and how should we maintain our cool? Because these kind of things sometimes happen, and what's your also suggestion to our officials, to how to handle this kind of press?
Yeah, I heard it. I heard the tape and both sides, the statement that he made and his apologies as well. I was very surprised in a sense, and I expect that kind of comments from the so-called journalists or some individuals who have no idea about politics and what have you. But Dina Mufti is, as far as I'm concerned, is a well-experienced diplomat. I know he served as an ambassador in Kenya, and I'm not sure what he did before. But one thing I know for sure is that when he's out there and talking to people, uh, you're not with friends, you're not socializing with your family. There is a microphone in front of you, and what you say will work against you if you say the wrong thing. And most importantly, that when you are out there and talking to the press, you are representing the government of Ethiopia, not Dina Mufti. Dina should not have mentioned or expressed his own personal feeling about Eritrea or Eritreans at that point. That was number one mistake. The other mistake that he made is that he said what he said about Eritreans. They do not respect their independent state. They do not celebrate it. And if they were asked, that's what they would say. He said, well, you should ask first before you make that statement. So that's the second mistake that he made. So he actually exposed himself that he was not a diplomat that day in front of the mic. He was just an ordinary person, and he cannot afford to have the government of Ethiopia in that position. Though he apologized, and Deputy Prime Minister Demeke Mekonnen had to come and also apologize on behalf of the government, because that was not enough. I think his apology is, for lack of a better word, wishy-washy, or he's just trying to blame it on somebody else. And one thing I know for sure now, that Dina Mufti will not put himself in that position again. And that's a big lesson that he learned, and I hope he keeps that in mind. And also he said some other stuff, but as far as I'm concerned about the Federation comment that he made, and that's his personal view. It doesn't bother me as an Eritrean. And I wish he had not said it, because he's the president in the government of Ethiopia. In his personal opinion, somewhere down where he hang out with his friends and families, and if someone just take him and say that, yeah, that's his right, and I don't have any problem. But he needs to be careful when it comes to giving a press briefing. Every word will be listened to carefully, and people will show you whatever reasons. So I think that's something he needs to be careful. Personally, I forgive him for what he said. The apology is accepted, because I'm positive that he will not repeat that kind of mistake again.
Thank you, Yohannes. I really appreciate you. I think we've had a great discussion. I believe that we might, have issues pop up here and comments here and there. People intentionally or unintentionally making comments in regards to Ethiopia or Eritrea. But I think we're stronger now. We're above the old days. And I think, especially for my generation, I would say the bond between Eritreans and Ethiopians is very mutual, full of respect. And I'm very honored, actually, to see that on our government levels and the people levels, like you said, we saw in the DC area and elsewhere. So I really hope that that we continue to collaborate and continue to use each other's resources, whether it's reading some of the articles that you have done, which I've gotten a chance to read, wonderful articles that you've written, very on point. I see why the Eritrean community really praise you. Very well written, very well-rounded articles. I got to learn a lot from you. I really appreciate you for joining me and having this discussion. If you want to have a minute or so to conclude to our guests, if you have a message, I would appreciate it.
Oh, thank you very much. First of all, thank you for taking the time to read my articles. I really appreciate that. I am also honored to come here and have this conversation with you. Hopefully this will not be the last time, and I'm sure there will be situations that will force us to come to this forum, and I look forward to that. Quite frankly, I don't have anything to add. You've said it all. We will work together with Ethiopians. That's my goal. And one thing that I have not mentioned is I was born and grew up in Ethiopia, so I have both cultures that I know very well, and that helps me a lot communicating with both sides and bridging the gap, so to speak. And that's something that I cherish. And I thank you very much for having me. That's all I have for tonight.
Okay, our followers and audiences of Prime Media, thank you for joining me this week. I will see you next week with another guest. Have a great week.